Details tonight on a twist in the search for a couple missing in the outback.
Jenny Kellett went missing in the goldfields near Sandstone. Her husband Raymond was found at the bottom of a 12-metre abandoned mine shaft, but Jenny had disappeared.
Any progress is good progress, and obviously the police have been busy with this in the background. Hopefully something comes of it.
At this point in time, we're not seeing anything that suggests criminality.
Are you serious?
Yes.
We've only got one side of the story.
We find Jenny, we will find out what happened.
It just doesn't happen out here. It's not normal behaviour.
Did you deliberately mislead the police about where you went with Ray and Jenny in Sandstone in March 2015?
No. It's not like them. They're experienced. They are not lost. Something terrible has happened.
Welcome to this bonus episode of Some Kind of Closure. As an independent production, we're working hard behind the scenes to bring you new information, new interviews, and new episodes. But these things do take time. In the meantime, we want to keep you informed and engaged with relevant content that adds depth to the story. So I guess it has been a bit quiet on the podcast front at the moment, so we wanted to do a bit of an update just to find out what's been going on behind the scenes. So we just thought we'd have a quick chat now, Dave, and we're up here at a pub, so excuse all the background noise. There's music and birds and wind, but here we are.
It was a good excuse for a lunchtime beer.
Exactly. So I guess for those, I've been getting a lot of questions from people saying, when's the next podcast episode coming out? And it's just we've been on a bit of a hiatus after episode 4 for just because life has got busy, but also there has been a bit going on in the background that we need to kind of process, and it's going to take time. But I think one big thing that would be worth starting with is a couple months ago in August, I think it was, you got a response from the DPP. So tell us about that. What was that process like, and what did they generally have to say in that?
Yeah, so I guess rewinding back to after the inquest, we reached out to the DPP then, which was Amanda Forrester. She's now a Supreme Court judge. But at the time, she was a DPP. We wrote a letter and essentially got a phone response a couple of times. Clearly didn't take any notes of those phone conversations. I probably should have in hindsight. But we never got a written response of what the reasons were or weren't for not going ahead with any charges. So I reached out to the current DPP, Robert Owen. When was that? Probably mid-year. Mm-hmm. Did it a bit more official than previously, and also copied in the Attorney General. And they did both provide a written response, probably under sufferance, I would suggest.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the thing that stood out to me, because you showed me that letter in particular, and I guess he essentially gave kind of back the original decision and said, based on the phone call that you had at that time, that there were a number of reasons she gave, but he outlined in the letter 3 key reasons. So I thought it might be worth just reading through those and then respond to those. And
there's a child on a swing in the background.
Yeah, so
that's to the ambiance.
There's a few noises going on in the background. But the first point, which I find a really interesting one, but I'll just read it word for word. It said there was insufficient evidence to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Ray was unlawfully killed, though a number of circumstances made an accidental death less probable. The possibility that he had fallen into the mine shaft could not be reasonably excluded. So I guess...
lucky this isn't a video episode.
Yeah. And I guess in the podcast so far, we've touched on this a little bit, and in some of the YouTube videos when we're up in Sandstone in March, when you physically go to that mine shaft, the thing that I said to you at the time was you'd have to try really hard to fall in there because it's in an open area. It's very visible and it's built up. You have to walk up to it, and it's, but I get that that's not a professional opinion. That's just me on the ground looking at it. But what has also happened since we've last podcasted is that we had the opportunity this time last week to go into the coroner's office and look over some of the coronial inquest testimony. And one that really jumped out to me on this topic, so a professional who has a professional point of view on this very topic was, and you might have to correct my pronunciation, but it was the DFS guy who found Ray, and his name is
Gasmier.
Ashley, I believe.
Ashley Gasmier.
And reading through his testimony, and we jotted down quite a few direct quotes, and I do want to read a few of those in a moment. He was pretty adamant that it did not look, from his professional point of view, like an accidental fall.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything to that before I read a few of his quotes?
Yeah, well, a couple of ways of thinking of that, because, you know, the only public document that we have from the inquest is the coroner's findings. And I think it does touch on that he had that belief or that understanding that it didn't appear to him to be accidental. But when you go through the full testimony, it's glaringly obvious that he didn't think it was possible at all.
Yeah.
And even described, you know, situations similar.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And I'll read a few direct quotes from him. So these are just some direct quotes. We basically assessed that mine shaft because it was 10 to 12 meters, that if you fell down that, you're going to go straight to the bottom and not move too far. The body doesn't necessarily bounce or roll too far when you're 80 to 100 kilos. And he further on said the body was laying back, so hence from why you can't see anything from the top to the ground, it was actually tucked out underneath. And this bit really jumped out. So it's either been dragged, moved, because it's a fair way across. And then he was questioned. In your experience, was the position of the body you saw on this occasion a common position? Was it a position you'd have anticipated if someone had fallen from the top of that mine shaft? And he answered, I don't think it would have been. My personal opinion, I don't think it would have been if you fell there to be faced upright. Unfortunately, having seen a few deceased people who fall off buildings and cliffs, that is not a common position. Laying up, face upright with an arm like that and legs splayed like that. No. He says the legs are basically shoulder width apart, and the legs and feet were splayed from there.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, it goes on and on. But I'll read one more and then jump back to you. Another question, did Mr. Kellett appear as if he had just been, I think you just used the word placed there. And he says, my assessment from that would be the fact that the feet are shoulder width apart. So through numerous training drills, things like that, we use mannequins and you drag things, you pull them along. So basically, through grabbing someone's ankles, you're going to drag them, drop them from there, and they'll be shoulder width apart. So yeah, the feet were splayed in that direction. So that's just a few. I mean, there's a lot more he said, but he very clearly, I guess, would put into question what they've said in terms of, you know, the possibility he'd fallen into the mine shaft could not reasonably be excluded.
Well, that's a common thing you hear all the time, isn't it? Reasonably excluded. It's like, yeah, God, what percentage do you need? Do you need 99.9 recurring, or? Yeah. Because I don't think it was Gasmier, but I do recall in the inquest, it might have been the TRG guy mentioning that typically when people suffer a fall, whether it's a mine shaft or a cliff or anything like that, they're found at the base for even if they're still alive because people naturally move to where they will be seen.
Yeah.
You know, they move to that position, or they fall and they land and that's it. That's their final position. And, you know, we've talked about the conical mound enough. You know, I've seen the photos now, unfortunately, down the shaft. For him to have done what the police suggested, i.e. fallen down there, hit that conical mound and somehow landed in the position he was in, is just, God, like if there is a minute possibility of that happening, I would be surprised.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the, you know, like that's all the professional side of it, but the layman side of it, you know, because I am your typical layman, but part of, you know, with Ray and Jenny is that they were so experienced in the country, in the bush and all that sort of, and mining areas. And it's part of that is not so much what you do, it's also what you don't do.
Yeah.
And you've seen the mine shaft, you've seen, like, you would not go close to that mine shaft unless you had reason to. You know, it's not something that you walk up to even for a casual look.
No.
So to suggest that he's, you know, chasing Ella, the dog, and even, you know, you can see it as plain as day, why would he have gone near it? For what reason? So, yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're very clearly planned to explore it, yeah, which we've discussed at length. So we won't go into that. Now, actually going back to, and I know it was quite confronting, and I'm sorry, when we did go into the coroner's,
now
we've got a duck on the table.
Lunch has arrived.
Get out of here. When we did go in, obviously, there were a lot of pictures from down in the shaft from when Ray was found, which was obviously very confronting. But one new thing for me there, I mean, I'd heard it mentioned somewhere, but the fact that there was also this tin, and we saw the picture of it, found on his body, you were aware of that?
Yeah,
and I guess we can only speculate, but was there, and has anyone ever made more of what that could have been, or?
I think it's been suggested that that fell down from above, but when having seen the scene now, it does look like it's more placed there, I would have thought.
And that's what Gasmier said as well. He said it looked as if it had been placed there, which that's why it stood out to me, just reading his testimony again, thinking very odd, but I guess, yeah, we just don't know. But it's just these new little bits of the puzzle piece continue to come up, and especially, having, I mean, we don't have to go into detail now, but we did get to see quite a few things that kind of either dispelled some thoughts we had or reinforced, and that's through looking at things like the CCTV footage. I don't know if we want to talk about that right now. I'm probably getting off track a bit.
No, I think last Friday, getting access to that coronial information was possibly the I don't know, what's the word for it? Most productive day I've had in 10 years, I think.
Yeah, wow.
Because you have a vague understanding of everything, and it is everything. But to get it, you know, like to be able to drill down to those key points and actually physically see the evidence and see the material was very, very, very beneficial, because it sort of dispels any doubts you have elsewhere and really puts it in perspective. I mean, Mal, after the inquest, Mal and I, my other brother, that is Mal, had the opportunity to see the let's call it a crime scene bundle of photos. And we sort of thought it probably wasn't a great idea mentally. But now having seen them, you know, it took a fair bit of bleach that night to get the visuals out of my mind, but it was very beneficial to see it because, again, going back to how Gasmier put it, you know, to see the position that Ray was in and the location in the mine shaft itself, just there's no doubt that he'd been moved, absolutely no doubt.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the surrounding material, like you just mentioned, the metal can near his head, you know, again, very conveniently located. the water bottle between his legs. That just everything else was covered in crap, but that water bottle was glistening clean.
Yeah, and we finally saw the photo as well of the fuel with the lid cut out partially at the front, and
Yeah, the jerry can.
the jerry can. Sorry, yeah,
And that's about, God, 3 or 4 metres away from where Ray was, and tests indicated that his blood was on it. So again, you know, yeah, it's a good indicator that there's been some movement down there.
And the thought you mentioned on that is that potentially it is a way people dispense of rope in.
Yeah, I think that Rick was the one that come up with that theory, and it's, yeah, seems very logical, very true. That if you rather than having if you're doing some rope work, which apparently was the plan up there,
Yep.
Rather than having those ropes when you're sort of lowering or ascending, you don't want them sort of to coil up in the dirt and rocks and then potentially get damaged. So they typically do that. They have a container that they let the rope coil into.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it made sense looking at it that could have been the use, but yeah, unsure. And we'll come back to some of that stuff, but let's jump back to the DPP letter and the second, I guess, reason that was given, and I'll read that out if that's all right. And so the second point was, they said, and I quote, "It would be challenging to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Jenny was deceased. If it could be proved that Jenny was deceased, there was insufficient evidence to exclude the possibility that her death was accidental."
yeah.
As well. So there's kind of two things in there, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious what my thoughts are, and when I received that letter and read through it, I was, very, very angry. But I have learnt over the years that I have a subjective opinion, so it's always good to get an objective opinion or three, which is why I shared it with you, and I shared it with a couple of people that are well entrenched into the system. I won't name them so I don't get them in any trouble, but let's just say they're very, very familiar with the case. And they read that letter and their opinion was pretty similar to mine, Jenny has a death certificate for a reason.
Yeah.
Put that full stop at the end of that one.
Yeah. And even, putting that aside, Ray has been found, and surely there is potential to prosecute just on his murder alone.
Yeah.
That's...
Oh, actually, there's a point to bring up, is that the search crews that did the initial searches, they said that if Jenny was in that location and had accidentally died, they would have found her. They covered that much ground and that much, to a certain level of clearance, that if it was accidentally, she would have been found. So you've been up there.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't walk out of there.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a bit of an aside, but also at what was of real interest to me, one document that we came across last week was the full unedited Channel 7 transcripts of the only interview that Milne's ever done with the media. And there was some stuff in there that just really jumped out to me. One being that he said twice really clearly, and I can't quote it, I don't have that document on me right now, but it had basically alluded to the fact that when Jenny is found, we'll know what happened, which was a really interesting one to me, which raises a whole lot of speculative questions. So we don't need to get into it, but it sounded, there's times that Milne, and again in his police interview we looked at, there were a couple things he reiterated that I hadn't heard before that just raised some new questions in my mind, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. I don't know if you...
Well, yeah, I've got a full conspiracy theory about that. Because that's, yeah, I'd seen that statement before. I think it was actually on the episode as well.
One of them was, but then there was another one that was even clearer. Yeah.
And it's almost like he was expecting her to be found and not Ray, in a way. And I mean, do you want me to go into the full conspiracy?
I'm interested to hear it, whether or not you want me to cut this later. That's up to you.
Well, you know, Ray appears to be hidden, let's say, and not expected to have been found. And in even the interviews that we read prior to Ray being found, it all sort of flows that it seems like he was expecting Jenny to be found. And it's like, my theory is that maybe he was going to pin that on Ray. So, you know, Jenny would be found, she would be clearly murdered, and then they don't find Ray. So then the good old DV Institute would come in on that and rule that side of it. That's my conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy theory, but when you read the statements and that, it's very clear that he was expecting her to be found.
Yeah, and that there would be an answer when she was found. Yeah. He specifically says that, but that's a bit of an aside. But so again, jumping back to the letter, the third reason given, and this one's pretty short and sharp and to the point, and I think is the big issue. I mean, it's all a big issue, but the third point, and I quote, "The forensic evidence was incapable of establishing a link between Mr. Milne and the death of either Ray or Jenny." So, and then further in the letter, essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, he essentially says, "I stand by this original finding and really we'll only look at it again if we get new evidence that allows us to reconsider it." So, what are your thoughts on that? And I guess you don't know everything that they were presented with and how they were presented with it, but...
Well, those objective opinions that I reached out to that I mentioned before, those other people, again, both, and they're not connected in any way, the two people, but they both had very similar opinions in that, it's a political position in the DPP. So he coming in after the previous DPP's made a decision, of course he's not going to go against that. I mean, it would be political suicide. So, hopefully, well, not hopefully, because I guarantee they have, but the cold case group in particular, I'm sure they can come up with a new brief of evidence which will surpass the previous. So we just, it's like the waiting game at the moment for that to happen. Yeah.
And I guess on that front, and you can say as much or as little as you want, are you confident, or do you know, or what can you say about that in terms of what might be happening on that front, or is that something you want to just? Oh
no, I think I think that it was in the news a month or so ago that we got the opportunity to catch up with one of the lead detectives. I'm sorry if I get the status wrong, but let's call him the lead detective of the cold case group that is looking at Ray and Jenny's case, and he was. Yeah, it was probably, the best meeting since Steve Clear was in charge. So, sort of hold him at that level as well. And he indicated that he would be putting a brief together, quite a substantial one. That he's not going to share what's in it, but, there is that hope and that will get it over the line.
Yeah, and you would assume that what you and Rick uncovered a couple of years ago will be included in that. Would be my assumption, but that should play a pretty major part in that. So that's super encouraging, and they've obviously been actively back on the ground up there. New signs are up. Like, there's been movement. Obviously, there was that big tidal wave of 10-year anniversary media coverage. The podcast launched, and there was a big push, and it seems the police are responding to that.
Yeah, I think they mentioned that they've been to that region. I mean, it's a huge region, but they've been up to that region 8 or 9 times in 12 months.
Is that right? I didn't realise it was that much.
Yeah, so they're really pushing to get evidence. And as we've seen from our little research last week, there's so much that we had no idea about before, like zero idea.
Yeah.
So, and that's good, you know, as long as it comes out in the end. I'm sure in 8 or 9 searches in 12 months, they've found stuff that we would have no idea about. So the hope that, or the trust that they have more to go back to the DPP is very, very high.
Yeah. And were there, just speaking of, and I know I'm still processing it, there was a lot to look at last week and make notes of. But I guess one that jumped out to me as well was there was so much GPS data that I was unaware of in terms of not only the one in the car, but then the satellite phone data. And we saw a few new little paths off the track that we weren't aware of before. And so even I know next time I go up or we go up, there's definitely places that I would be inclined to have another look at, which obviously the police are across. But that was really interesting to me to see how much just data there is available in these types of cases.
Yeah, and we certainly didn't see the full files either. So yeah, I mean it's I was never going to give up anyway, but you know, like after seeing all that information and knowing what they've been up to in the last 12 months, it's, you know, although we're in a bit of a lull as far as you know, the ongoing roller coaster, we're in a bit of one of those big long straight sections. It does feel like it's coming to an end, which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, one can only hope. Now, were there any? I mean, they were the main things I wanted to talk about. I mean, it seemed like in terms of the letter, obviously the initial response, I can imagine, would have been one of probably, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but frustration.
The way I described it when I shared it with people was that it felt like I was taken out the back of the public school. The private school boys kicked the absolute shit out of me. That's what it felt like reading those letters. The Attorney General one wasn't as much of a kicking, but that DPP one sure did feel like I was held down and kicked in the guts.
Yeah. No, I can understand why, but I guess the hope is with this new brief of evidence that there's going to be the right call will be made.
Yeah, I think when he was initially put in that position, there was a bit of hope, even from people that were previous on the investigation, because he is an ex-cop. You know, he's the DPP, but he did come from policing background, so he's got more of an understanding that side, whereas the previous DPP didn't.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep.
Well, I won't be waiting, we'll be pushing, but, you know, we not that we can do much until that happens. It's sort of out of our control when that happens. But.
Yeah. And I guess, and just for an update from my side, podcast-wise, we've done 4 episodes, major episodes at this point. There's 2 more in the planning at this stage. So be patient, people, they will come. And one of them is quite, we've talked to quite a few people that they're quite long interviews that I want to really give these people the respect and sensitivity they deserve with their stories. So it will be coming, but it will be a little while off. And I think, as we get through those, then it will be a wait and see for a while. And then hopefully we'll be back maybe with some more episodes when the roller coaster really gets moving, if this thing moves to a trial at some point. So that's...
Well, I'll just say how thankful we are for you, Chris. Didn't get that wrong, Chris. Because if anyone that's listening, he is literally a one-man band. These podcasts are written, produced, filmed, recorded, the full works edited by one person, and that is just phenomenal. Yeah, so thank you, mate.
Yeah, no, it's been a journey and met many amazing people, yourself included, obviously along the way. But yeah, it's been a journey, and hopefully we'll get some positive outcomes. And I was doing the math, and this isn't to make you feel bad or anyone, just in terms of the time taken for each episode, just so people know, it's about 2.5 weeks full time. So it obviously isn't my full-time job. So that's why in the last little while I've been focusing on my day job. But who knows, maybe we'll get some runway soon and be able to work on the next episodes. But I think it's been a natural time to take a breather after that first initial push. And but we'll definitely, before the end of the year, we'll have another episode or two, and then it'll be a bit of wait and see. But keep listening, keep sharing, and keep, I guess, subscribing. Is that what you say? Like,
I think so. Subscribe. Yeah, that's what I hear on the kids say these days.
In future episodes of Some Kind of Closure, we'll continue to explore the key details of Ray and Jenny's final trip, speaking with family members, experts, and others closely connected to the case. If you or anyone you know has information about this case, you can contact us via our Facebook page, The Man in the Hole. As the series unfolds, we're hopeful that more people will come forward with insights that could help piece together a clearer picture and ultimately bring the families some kind of closure and hopefully justice. It's also important to note that a $2 million reward is currently being offered for information leading to a conviction in this case. This is one of the largest rewards in Australian history, offering a powerful incentive for anyone with knowledge to come forward. If you have any information related to this case, please contact Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. Even the smallest details could make a huge difference. That number again, 1800 333 000. We acknowledge the Badimaya people of the Yamatji Nation as the traditional custodians of the lands where this episode was recorded. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise their enduring connection to this unique and beautiful place. Thank you for listening to Some Kind of Closure. If you found this episode valuable, please consider subscribing and leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's a quick, free way to support the show, and it really helps us reach more people. This is a fully independent production. If you'd like to support the podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Just get in touch via our Facebook page. Lastly, we acknowledge the presumption of innocence for all individuals discussed in this series. Any opinions expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the producers. Thanks again for listening.
We've only got one side of the story.
They were just everyday people.
We find Jenny, we will find out what happened.
And the truth will prevail.